Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast. On today's interview, we interview Stefan Burns, who is a geophysicist who deals with the current energies of the universe and brings us updates almost on the daily on his YouTube channel, which has nearly 100,000 subscribers to it. Stefan's sort of prolific in his understanding and his willingness to guide us through these changing energies on the planet and in the universe. And he's also very graciously started relating these sort of things to sort of our daily lives through, it may be Bitcoin, the astrology, or even sort of the state of our mammals and animals. And Stefan was gracious enough to lend his voice and his intelligence to the podcast today. And we're super excited to talk with him. And he's a wealth of information and knowledge and interest.
Thank you for the wonderful intro. Yeah, I have a lot of wide-ranging interests. I feel like you covered all of them. So time to wrap up. We're done.
Yeah. Well, just I recently started watching the podcast and have had an interest actually in space weather for a while. And what I found was interesting, especially, and I'm sure you knew this before you ever started, but that people were really interested in it, or it could be a very interesting topic, and it really has relevance to our daily lives right now.
Yeah, it's this topic that I think there's an innate curiosity because part of us, whether we're educated on it or not, has this awareness that we are part of this greater whole. And I think some of the problems right now in society is that we've become disconnected. Like if you just look at human civilization across time, we're always searching for connection to wholeness and connection to source or connection to God, universe. And that at times has been controlled, like way back in time. It was very simple. Like during the age of Taurus, age of Gemini, we had these Mother Earth goddess figures, and we just prayed to the earth. And they had these elaborate rituals. You go to different archaeological sites and museums, especially like in Eastern Europe around the Black Sea. Fascinating. But there was a direct connection. They had small villages. There was a tribal shaman and a leader, and they were all part of it. That's what it seems. The archaeological evidence shows that. But then it started to become kind of like hidden away and segregated away from people. Eventually, like the church, like you could get to God through the church. Mm-hmm. And that's, of course, one of the big revolutions with Christianity is that you could then, instead of having to necessarily go directly through the church, like you can pray to God yourself, right? And you don't have to necessarily go to church on Sunday to be someone that believes in God and is praying to God. Like you can pray to God at other hours and things, but there's just been like this kind of distance that's been built. And now with modern civilization, everyone's so distracted and focused on other things and stressed and so many people now are atheists, don't even believe in like a creator. There's just like this divide. And myself felt that I was able to kind of bridge and jump that divide just by learning more about the cosmos and the sun and the earth. And that is like a very big step closer towards feeling that greater wholeness, which is what provides that inner kind of joy, happiness, comfort, sense of belonging, I feel like.
Yeah, we feel that way too. We've, especially on the podcast recently, we've been interviewing a number of people that really talk about the nature of nature, trees talking, the communications with plants, that we are not separate at all from anything. We're all sort of part of the same universe. We're all very connected. And that's one of the reasons I found space weather, which seems like it's far out. We're far out in the planets. It doesn't affect us, but it does on a very real level. So why did you get into this? What brought you to, be very public about it and really start your channel? And how long has this been going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I see how everything kind of makes sense in my life, though. I wasn't focused on YouTube or ever thought I'd be like a YouTuber when I was, let's say, like a teenager or something. But nor did, like, when I was a kid, I went to In-N-Out, and I never thought I was going to be working at In-N-Out for 5 months in college, right? So you have these things that happen, and then you realize later. And so, like, I mean, I always had interest in nature, and I had a lot of interesting dream experiences as a kid, which have now come back to me because I've kind of
Mm.
done the purification needed for the pineal gland. So there's always been this really big scientific interest and passion, but also this kind of exploration of altered states of consciousness through like dreaming and that liminal space in between them that have been like kind of parallel and coexisting when I was growing up, and then went to school for geology, then became a geophysicist, and I guess the science one kind of took over a little bit more. But what was interesting is that it all guided me back. I discovered and learned about the Schuman Resonances, which are these
Mhm.
natural energy fields that exist everywhere. And I never learned this in my education for geology and later in geophysics. It took me a while before I heard of them, which is kind of crazy because they're one of these dominant energy fields that exist everywhere. You think it'd be one of the first things you learn about. Even when I was traveling, I met this, and I mean, give grace to everybody, but I met this PhD in atmospheric sciences, and I
Mhm.
asked him if he knew what they were, and he didn't know what they were. And I mean, here's this energy field created by lightning strikes and part of the global electric circuit. It's like one of the big aspects of atmospheric science. You can use them as a global tropic thermometer to understand how the climate of the Earth is changing. They're connected to so many things, space weather. I mean, so much. And he had no idea. And so, in general, there seems to be a lack of awareness and education on these energy fields. And that's just one
Mhm.
of them. There's a whole
Right.
bunch. Space weather also, I would say, is part of that. But they're really interesting because once I heard about them, then I just had this curiosity to keep exploring it. So I read some papers on it, and I just kept like, the more I learned about it, the more fascinating it became, because then you learn about the links with consciousness and heart rhythms and spirituality and collective conscious and all this. And
Mhm.
so how that turned into like YouTube is that I made a video on it. It's like 6 minutes long. And if you type in Schumann Resonances, it's still one of the first videos to pop up. And that video, after like 4 months of kind of sitting there, just doing stuff in the background, I had almost no subscribers on my channel. It's like one of my only videos. All of a sudden, it started to get traction.
Hmm.
And it was really cool as someone who basically had no subscribers to see a video spike up to like 400 views a day. It's like, oh my God, right? And I was like, I should make more videos like this. Like,
Uh-huh.
that's a good way for me to learn, is I can read the research papers, look at the data, and then go through the process of summarization and everything, and then presenting it. And that really resonated with a lot of people. And the universe kept giving me signs to do that more. And so here I am. That's simple.
I think that's super interesting in the Schumann resonance. I try to say this to people about, well, there's this metaphysical aspect and there's a certain energy that resonates throughout the earth itself. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, maybe you have a headache or you're feeling a certain way because the vibration of the earth is changing. It's still a mystery to a lot of people. It still seems like that's not a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that experience at all?
Yeah, I think that this field is still very, very new and wide open. And we're really just at the beginning of understanding this, and also the beginning of like public awareness and, you could say, acceptance.
Mm.
Because in the intro, you mentioned that I almost have 100,000. It kind of blows my mind that that's the
I
case. But
know.
also, I was just talking yesterday, like I saw a Reddit thread in the Starseed forum, which I just discovered,
Yeah.
and people were commenting about headaches and nausea and all this stuff. Like, did anyone feel like they just got hit by a semi truck recently? And of course, we just had that G4 storm like 3, 4 days ago kind of wrap up. And so a geomagnetic storm is one of the really big things that can trigger symptoms like that. I mean, I got a headache during that one, and that's very common. And G4 is very powerful. And it wasn't until I scrolled all the way down. There's so many comments on it. Tons of people are commenting on this and sharing their own like kind of health experience with that. Only at the very bottom did I find any link saying, yeah, it was because of the storm, it was because of solar activity. Everyone else was just saying, I felt that too, but I have no idea why. There's a couple people mentioning the astrology. I think that's part of it. That's clicking
Mhm.
into place with this full moon.
Mhm.
But that was very clearly from that G4 storm. I mean, the timing is perfect on that. We know that causes those sort of health symptoms like, arrhythmia of the heart and headaches and nausea and fatigue. And these people just simply didn't know. Most of them, like I say, 90+%, did not know anything about that. And so, so much room for growth there. And that's great because these people feel this connection. They're looking for answers. And not that all the answers exist with like space weather, health connections, but that is a big component. And so we should really open up and study into that more, both spiritually and feeling into it, also scientifically. A lot more research needs to be done there.
So what's a G4 storm?
Was that Monday? Was that when the earthquake was?
It was all around that same time. Today's Friday. So yeah, that was like, what was that? Monday, Tuesday? Yeah, I think it was Monday, Tuesday. It was like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It was kind of a big, broad range. It took a while to build up, it was one of these kind of like sleepers, and that just slowly started to ramp up over like 24 hours. And then we hit that main phase. A G4 storm is just a designation class, like for a hurricane. They have category 4, category 5. A G4 is like a category 4, which means that the fluctuations of Earth's magnetic field are really quite significant. Whereas a G1 storm is also these fluctuations to the field strength, but they're quite a bit less. And so these are fluctuations to Earth's force field, you could say. I mean, a magnetic field is basically just this latent, invisible field of force that has an ability to do work, push charge around, for example. How strong it is depends on, like, how much work it can do depends on the strength of the field. And so Earth's magnetic field is pretty strong over a broad range. And so it interacts with us at the cellular level. It moves ions and charge carriers around in our body, but usually it's stable. So the effect is relatively inert. But when you have it swinging back and forth like this, the field strength goes way up, then it goes way down. And it's having all these oscillations and different pulsations that are typically very low amplitude, all of a sudden dramatically increase in power. Stands to reason that all of a sudden our body would respond, and that in general creates this more stress cellularly and more free radical activity. It kind of creates less coherence in the body, and then that needs to be dealt with because life likes coherence and order. But I feel like you get certain information downloads from that, and it helps your body to like share information from other parts and bring it together to synthesize. So that's really interesting.
Lexi, were you going to ask about the full moon that's coming up? And this feels like it's all connected.
Well, first of all, your videos, you have a very soothing voice. And I love listening to weather reports just in general. I love the weather. It's my favorite part of the news. It's very calming for me. And then when I was watching your geo weather reports, I guess, and then you incorporated astrology, it was like, this is the weather, actually. Yes. I mean, it made so much sense. And you had listed, I think in one of your videos, you had listed some things and sort of what to expect, coming up to the full moon and after the full moon. And there's squares and kazimis and things like that. And trust me, you know more than we do. So would you like to share what happened?
Well, if I was to kind of go back to like the journey aspect, is was having these things that I was learning, the science, some of the spirituality, more so with like dreaming, keeping a dream journal, things of that nature. I think it's really important, at least for me. But then I found that as other things have kind of come in, they've also captured my curiosity. Astrology is one of them. And then as I've learned it, it's very greatly like slotted in perfectly and has added additional coherence to what I'm seeing. And so, I mean, it's not like I'm invaluable and I'm not prone to some bias. I'm human, but in general, I am pretty good at looking at things pretty plainly. And the more I study into astrology, the more those archetypal energies just clicked into place and really make sense. And so it was just a natural evolution to start like adding that into my videos when it resonated. And yeah, that really seemed to have grabbed a lot of people. I actually thought that was going to not be something that people appreciate it. Some people don't. Some people are really in it just for like the space weather or the science stuff. But there's other channels out there that are focused just on like mainstream science. But in general, most people appreciate getting this information, that information, that information, and seeing how they all come together.
Right.
And the key is just making sure it's kind of packaged in a way that it's really like how you zip a file, right? You have all this information contained, but can you summarize in a way that you don't lose any information, but it's also not, this 5-hour lecture. And so I guess I have a little bit of a gift with that. It's a skill too. But the astrology, I'm so happy I've been learning it and that I was able to get it online so quickly, you could say, because it's really impactful as it relates to like sharing this information. So this full moon is really crazy because basically every single planet is connected in some way with some geometric alignment. And that's what we're talking about with astrology, really. I mean, if we want to really kind of zoom out and look at more scientifically, it's just like, what are the alignments at play? We have the sun, like for a full moon, it's the sun, earth, and then the moon in a line. And there seems to be some effect as a result of that. We also get more light from the moon, of course. And, the term lunatic has the word luna in it. And so we see like these different effects of kind of people acting a little crazy during the full moon. But other planets can also form alignments. And so like right now, for example, we have Earth, Mars, and Jupiter in a line. And what's the effect of that? We have these T-squares that are building. And so typically with astrology, you're looking at just like one single aspect. So like, okay, we have Mars square Venus. But because there's a T-square, it all of a sudden is like compounding everything to a much greater degree, which is why so many astrologers are looking at this full moon like with like wide eyes and also like a lot of uncertainty as to what's going to happen. Just like a big kind of wild card thrown down on the table effectively, because it's not just a Mars-Venus square that we have right now. It's also a Mars-Saturn square. So it's incorporate energies from their cycle, which goes back to January. This is like the cycle of woe. It's not it's not the friendliest cycle, you could say, but that's also now at its opening square. You have Mars conjunct Jupiter, and then you have Venus opposite Saturn. So now just those 3 planets have like 5 or 6 different things all happening at once. Mm-hmm. And then you have another T-square with the sun, the moon, and Uranus. So there's a moon-Uranus square, there's a sun-Uranus square, there is a sun-moon opposition. It just gets really wild. And then if we were to take the last 2 planets into the equation, we have Neptune and Pluto, the furthest out. They're at critical degrees. So they're not in, you could say, like these T-squares, but they're at these critical degree points, which are really important. And then Mercury is Cazimi and conjunct the sun. So it's Sun, Mercury, Earth. And so you just have all these alignments clicking into place on the 18th and on the 9th. And it's just, usually you get these powerful alignments, but it's just like 2 or 3 planets at play. But this is every single planet going from the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. All of them are in these alignments, which is quite rare. I haven't seen that before, like, tracking this stuff. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Huh. Do you have a prediction for it? Do you have a concept of it? And that included with whatever's happening sort of on the solar level too and Earth's energetics?
Yeah. Well, in general, I see a lot of different things coiling up energetically. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of very much the energy of a T-square, where you have these squares, like the energy is kind of tense and building. And I don't think there's a lot of predictions being made right now. For example, there's like earthquake predictions. There are, for example, like solar storm predictions. Like we have this really big sunspot, biggest we've seen on the far side. That will be Earth direct on the 25th. These energies are not necessarily always clicking in exactly at the critical astrology moment. Sometimes they lead up and then follow. It's just kind of like the window, the zone. And so maybe we see a really big solar flare come off of that sunspot in that August 18th to 30th period. That's very possible. But maybe we see like some big financial downturn, or there's some more political chaos, or there's so many things that are tense right now. And so I think just in general, what we're seeing kind of from our like quantum reality field, you could say, like what just the field of manifestation potential is giving us something like a lot of polarized, tense energy for us to deal with, to then kind of trigger some shift, which is beneficial for us, hopefully, right? Some increase in consciousness that hopefully we channel appropriately. And I think it can manifest and pop out in any of these different coiled up springs, but it's not necessarily guaranteed to trip all of them, or it's guaranteed for one. Like, I don't think it's guaranteed to result in some mega earthquake. I don't think it's guaranteed to result in some crazy political thing, but I think it will pop up somewhere. And so, yeah, making predictions is difficult and in some aspect kind of like a fool's game a little bit, because you make it and then it doesn't come true, but then you just keep on making them. And so, I mean, we just know that there's something significant will happen. I think that's the big prediction, but what, I don't know. I'd like to know just as well as you.
I know. Well, of course, we like security, right? We think that that'll make life easy for us, but by knowing in advance. But it's really interesting that you combine all these disciplines and understandings. I don't know if that was your game plan, but that's kind of what's happened.
Yeah, not the game plan, just was kind of organically evolved. I spent a lot of time in customer service as a kid. Like my dad had a bakery from 6 to 16. And I mentioned In-N-Out earlier. For the 5 months, I also worked at a hotel and did restaurant jobs and stuff. And the point of me mentioning that is that the what you learn if you're really good at customer service, that the customer is always right, and that you're always striving to provide the best possible experience. And I very much, can have a good analytical mind, and I focus on details sometimes to my detriment. But in general, I'm always striving to make stuff as condensed with information, but also as simple as possible with my data graphics and things. And so it's this iteration process that I'm going through that has been a lot of fun. And if we go back to when I decided to quit my job and start traveling the world, I want to experience the world a lot more than I had. And I wanted to see if building this YouTube channel could work. I consider that my pseudo master's, because there was an idea of going to school and getting a master's. And so I decided, well, all this information is out there. I'll just do the research myself. And so these videos very much became research projects. And that was the final deliverable. That's the final thing to give to the teacher. And so it just constantly kept building. And now I have a pretty good system at work with that. And so it's taken some time to get there, but I'm glad I did. And I've learned so much. That's the whole thing. It's been this constant feedback process that's really been transformative that anyone can do.
Right. And you also have this lovely way of what I consider to be somewhat complicated, or it could be complicated. You really put it very succinctly and in a nutshell that I can at least walk away with some sort of understanding very immediately, and then sort of let the rest of it process in at a deeper level.
Yeah, that's kind of how you learn. That's at least how that's a good way to learn, in that there are simple takeaways, but then there's also extra depth added. And it's a little bit above and beyond, but you just keep tuning in, like with learning a language, and then you learn it. And so, I mean, everyone has different formats or ways, like YouTube channels, for example, but I just find that a lot of them keep it overly simple, and they are very misleading, and they will never provide the extra depth, and they just want you to believe their word as gospel, something like that. And so that's why I always make an effort to make things simple and understandable, and I'll take that jargon that's in all these different papers and fields and turn it into regular speech. But then I also will say, I'll give you that next kind of lead showing you, and this is why that's the case, right? Let's actually look at the data, and then we can see this, because that's really important. Otherwise, it's I'm just another authority figure. Hey, you have to believe me. It's I want people to actually learn how to read this stuff themselves, look at this data themselves. And if they really, really go down that path, then they'll start reading these research papers, looking at the data all the time like I do. But it's building a funnel for that, at least. And I think a lot of people do that now, because I see people commenting, did you see the flare? And I haven't made a video yet, right? They saw it before I did. They're analyzing this stuff to a pretty good degree. But that's important to actually educate your audience rather than
Right.
just tell them what to think. And that's what a lot of people do. It's like, here's what to think and don't question me. And I don't think that's the direction we should be going. I don't think that's Age of Aquarius stuff, personally. So we're moving away from that, I hope.
Yeah, that guru-ness. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I always feel like I'm in class when I'm watching your video, and I'm like, this is fascinating.
That's great.
So, yeah, and I actually, honestly, I thought you were probably a professor. Is that? Have you worked as a professor at all?
No. I guess the only thing, like, I had my palm read when I was in Mexico, and this guy, he looked at my palm. He's like, "Oh my God!" He started like going crazy. But I have a strong like Mercury line going to my Mercury finger, and so
you sure do. It's the distilling down. It's the sifting the unusable from the usable. The synthesis. I was going to ask if you're a Virgo. You've got a lot of Virgo energy.
Yeah, just my son.
That's your.
Oh, that's your son.
Okay. Yeah.
Listen to us. We're like, oh. And then, but you have a lot of Leo aspects.
Too many. Yeah, it's like, what am I? I don't know. And I just saw this meme saying like dangerous astrological combos. It said Virgo and Leo. I was like, oh my God, I guess I'm dangerous.
They say that.
But yeah, I got this strong. Huh?
They say that. I mean, I'm a Sagittarius sun and a Gemini moon, and people are like, "Oh, watch out, crazy!" But then I've got a stellium in Virgo, so that's what people don't know about me is that I'm also very like, what? Who are you even? I don't know. Depends on which planets we're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that's interesting too because you have a T-square in your chart, then all mutable. So that's
all this.
You're living what we have coming up right now. You're living that every day of your life.
Yeah,
that explains a lot.
That feels true. Thanks for the confirmation.
I'm sorry, Lexi.
And that's one thing too. I feel like when these energies come in astrologically, people are like, "Oh no, it's the end of the world," or it's really tense. And yes, we can have these tense energies, and often they'll be like, so keep in mind, let's say like Mars is going through Aries, right? And they're like, keep in mind, like, don't let anger get the better of you or things of that nature. And I'm not like an angry person. Very rarely do I lose like any control with that. But like sometimes things need to express themselves. And I think the energy is what it is. And so it's good to be conscious, but I don't think it behooves you to limit how you actually want to express yourself as long as you're doing it consciously. And so these energies are just what they are. And some people will deal with them better, right? Like, for example, with you have that T-square, mutable T-square in your chart. Like that is who you are, your essence. Like you're going to handle those energies very likely better than someone else who's not well equipped or acquainted with them. And so it's not like these energies with this full moon coming up are bad. It's just what they are. And for some people might find them challenging. Other people might find them great. Just like some people found the whole thing with 2020, 2021 difficult, right? Other people thought it was amazing in general for their life. And so, there's a lot of opportunity in these things.
So do you find people find peace in understanding space weather as well?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it provides a sense of reassuring and comfort. Yeah, because it is, if you were to, let's say, have some sort of like health symptom come out of nowhere, it can be a little troubling. Like it's very easy to all of a sudden be on WebMD and you have like some crazy disease, right? And your brain can take this stuff and start to loop it, right? And so it kind of goes both ways. I think there's a reassuring factor. Okay, we had a G4 storm. That could explain why I had the headache or the fatigue. That kind of came out of nowhere. But then there's also the bypassing, like gaslighting yourself. Like, oh, well, that explains why I felt like this. But in reality, it's because you have a poor diet, you're not sleeping enough, and you're just not being accountable for, just sometimes these things bring up things for you to hold yourself accountable with. And so I see that as well. Or like people are like, thanks for the update. That explains why I'm feeling like trash. But the update was that things are quiet right now. Right. The update wasn't that we had a solar flare. It's that actually things are very quiet. I see that sometimes. And so it's like they didn't watch the video. They just knew that they could have a platform to share that with.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. I mean, there are real, and there's ultra sensitive people that are more sensitive to these small fluctuations. And then there's some people that are kind of more like rocks and only feel it if it's really big. I guess I just really find personal accountability and just being truthful with yourself the most important thing. And sometimes that is like recognizing that the sun is this really big energy agent.
Mm-hmm.
And other times it's, looking at yourself and like, maybe I shouldn't have had 4 cups of coffee on the day that a solar flare impacted. Like, that probably wasn't a good decision.
No, it wasn't. How did you know that I did that? Like, that's true. I mean, called out, like, respectfully. That's, yeah, I can't be the only one who, makes those decisions. And then I'm like, oh, the solar flares. That's why. I mean, when it comes to accountability, why would we gaslight ourselves other than it's too scary to think we might be able to change our lives? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, in general, one of the journeys I've gone through over the past like 3 years is recognizing the different things that are altering like my hormonal system and my neurotransmitter system and things of that nature. I mean, a lot of people talk about dopamine, serotonin, but what are your inputs? And so, for example, in like the Balkans, right, people wake up, they'll have their coffee, they'll put like cubes of sugar in there, and they'll smoke some cigarettes, right? You have like 3 big things all of a sudden. You got the coffee, the sugar, and the cigarettes. Boom, you're up, right? Well, can you have a morning without any of that? And yeah, you can, and you can feel just fine. And so people have different inputs, and one of them is technology. Like another one would be like cannabis. A lot of people are like microdosing all the time. They go to their job, and it's really because we want to feel happiness and joy in our lives. But these things can become crutches. And so a big journey that I've gone through is slowly taking these things offline. That before I had a lot. And then with consciousness, I realized, oh, I probably shouldn't be doing this, that. And I never got into some of the crazy things. Like, some people like back in the 80s, using like that type of stuff all the time, right? And that all affects you really strongly. And so that can be really difficult, though. These addictions can be really difficult. And I think that's a dirty word. People think of it as like a dirty word, but you can be addicted to coffee. It's also really easy to get off coffee, but you can definitely be like psychologically dependent on it, or like cannabis or cigarettes or a whole bunch of things, food, right? And it requires like giving that up and kind of going into more of this void space and seeing what comes up and allowing that natural depression and low to occur, which isn't a bad thing. And I think that, I don't know why, but that's like a really challenging thing for a lot of people. And maybe more so now because Neptune is at the critical degree final in Pisces that's talking to all of that. So maybe that'll change in 2025, 2026. People have an easier time kind of reinventing themselves and getting off of things and just embracing like their actual state. I don't know.
I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like in understanding the energies that are at play at the moment, that can emphasize and bring those things up to the surface much more readily, because it feels as though in part the energies create a certain pressure on our human existence. So the shadow aspects of ourselves, or the addictions, or the bad habits, or bad thoughts, that comes to rise to the surface much more quickly. Has that been your experience as well, in understanding and understanding a greater knowledge of all of this as the overall?
Yeah, it seems so, because it's forcing us to change in some aspect and to evolve into who we are. And like what I've personally noticed is that my body gives me clear signals on what foods it likes and what foods it doesn't. And I think that if my body was less Virgo like, right, it would be like, okay, you know what, I can just handle this stuff, but it wants perfection out of me. And so it'll be like, no, you have to give me the stuff that's actually going to sustain your best health and your consciousness evolution journey, because our bodies are temple for that. And so there's that feedback that I get. It's like, okay, I have to really just be very, very loving and nurturing, but precise in my diet. I'm not just going to be an a-hole and go get pizza every night, for example, right? And so I think the solar energies are forcing that greater consciousness and change upon us. And it doesn't mean giving up everything all the time. It's just using it when the moment is appropriate. For example, there was like a year or two ago, like 2 years ago, hadn't used any canvas for a long time. And then it was 420. Like I put a call to the universe, and the universe gave me a little bit for the day. And I had a little bit. All of a sudden I was doing yoga, and it felt amazing. And it's because I had been forgetting to stretch and move my body, and that brought awareness there. So at that moment in time, it was the perfect medicine, but like every single day, not working so well, at least for me. And so it's just us learning how to use these tools better and to be less fixed in our routines and to be more just conscious of the present moment. That's what I'm really learning, is how can I be more conscious in every moment to make the right decisions that fuel this evolution journey and like push me forward in a beneficial way. I feel like the sun does that.
Right. I think there's a fear of the sun sometimes right now. The sun has brought us bad things, or the it's too intense, or it's causing cancer. I don't know. So, do you feel like we need to see the sun more as our friend and as a bit of a guide in a way?
Well, it's interesting you say that. And so I'm going to ask you a question too, because we're on opposite sides. I mean, you have your own podcast, of course,
Uh-huh.
but, I have my own perspective, and I'm educating on this stuff. And, looking at the historical record, we see that solar activity used to be much higher at certain points. And so this isn't something new. We were in a
Right.
lull period for the past 20 years. Solar cycle 24 was quite weak. I think that kind of made us a little soft, you could say. Now it's going back up. But, in the past, people like this solar cycle 19 was crazy strong. Solar cycle 3 was the strongest ever observed. And of course, there's millions of years of history that we don't know.
Right.
And so it's not like this is the strongest it's ever been or anything like that. So I don't think we should fear it, but some people do. And so that's kind of my question to you, because you have your own podcast, but you also watch this space weather stuff to have a greater understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the fear aspect that some people have, the worry aspect, is because it's like innate to us, or because that is like pushed on people and programmed? Like, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's interesting. I think there's a part of the population that just doesn't understand what's happening in general right now. So sometimes we look for what's outside of us to explain what's going on. Oh, it's the sun. Oh, it's the solar flares. Oh, it's the intensity of this. So I can sort of, I don't know, blame it. It's a little victimization. And then the other side is that if we internalize it and understand that it's a part of us, it's a part of our natural living, it's a part of nature, there's much to be gained from it. And perhaps I'm just not listening very well. So it's understanding that connection between the two. It's not like that is a force or a god or an evil. It's actually part of me that needs to be expressed more openly and understood better. It's part of my consciousness as much as it's part of my body. I don't know if that answers anybody's question.
No, I like that. I was talking with an herbalist friend yesterday, and at the very beginning, he mentioned about how like a plant is one waveform and we're another waveform, all part of this greater whole. And so when you bring in that plant consciousness and that plant energy, it can work with you very intelligently. And I guess the same kind of model of understanding can be applied to our solar system. Like the sun is this very big waveform. Sometimes it's just, it is what it is. And we are very mutable and flexible. I think we can work with all these energies as long as we just, go with that, you could say, like kind of cosmic flow and feel into it. Right. And then who knows where that takes you? Like you undergo this journey, you learn these lessons, and then you have just much greater control, you could say, over your direction in your life and what you want to do after the end of, let's say, a tumultuous period, right? Like after this whole full moon sequence, which looks really crazy, that may bring up a lot for a lot of people. I think that people will be more empowered afterwards. And that's going to be really cool to see how that moves forward for the rest of 2024.
Cool. I mean, the Mayans seem to have it down, right? And the Incans seem to understand it. So I don't know why we can't seem to understand it.
Yeah, ancient cultures were much more in tune with this than we have been. though we have better technology now as far as we know. But I think just because, like last night, I went out and I finally saw Venus as the evening star because she was close to the sun. Now she's far enough away that as the sun sets, once it gets dark, you can see her there. Anytime I go out, I look for the moon. A lot of people don't do that, though. Well, I think that's the easiest way.
Which people don't do that?
Yeah. We're like, what? We're moon worshippers. What?
Yeah. I mean, if people see the moon,
I prefer to be under the stars.
Yeah, there's just a connection when you just like kind of track these things, and once you know what they represent and everything, then if you see the moon up there and it's waxing gibbous, it just kind of brings a greater sense of connectedness and wholeness into one's life, and helps you to like navigate these changes as well. But not everyone does that.
We didn't talk about the teas yet. You've got tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we? I've been like, we have to ask about the teas because there's
well, that's one of the things that I don't present everything all the time on my YouTube channel, you could say. But one of the things I also have really embraced over the past like 3-4 years is herbalism. I've always been really into gardening. I have a green thumb, doing that since I was like a kid, teenager. Like when I was a young kid, I planted an apple seed in my mom's courtyard, and this big storm came through. When I came out the next day, it was gone. And I was like so sad that this apple little sapling like disappeared. Turns out I planted it right next to the fence. My mom pulled it out because she was like, that's not going to go anywhere. And it took her years to admit that. I was like, I could have put it somewhere else, but I was like, I just have this connection with plants. And so herbalism is really great because plant medicine is so powerful. 2 years ago in 2022, I was looking for a tea blend that helps you to like have more vivid dreams, more lucid dreams, to connect to astral realm stronger. Can help people with like meditation, sound healing, and even like some people like astral travel, such things of that nature. And so I kind of stumbled upon after a lot of iterations, a good recipe, which is blue lotus flower, mugwort, chamomile, passion flower. You could also add damiana to that if you wanted to. And that's really great. And so I've been offering that tea blend, which is spirituali-tea, to people, and people have been loving it. But there's other tea blends I have and make. I just mix them as needed, and I'm always experimenting with new herbs. And that's also been really cool seeing how that's impacted the kind of my health and wellness, and then the consciousness evolution journey. And I mean, like coffee is an herb. I think we're all herbalists. Anyone that's drinking coffee is an herbalist to some degree because that's a very powerful herb. And so that also is very resonant with a lot of people. It goes back to our history, and we were using herbs for medicine predominantly until like basically the 1900s. And it's just recently has shifted. And hopefully that's just a temporary blip and we get back to like preventative and herbal medicine. But I just have a lot of fun making these herbal teas, and people seem to love them because a lot of the stuff that you buy is like, it's almost like powder, and the quality is just not there. It's not organic. And I basically just make sure I get good, high quality, organic, and like also like what is the type of farm too. That's very important. Herbs, and then just package them loosely. Simple ratios. It's not like dusted. Like some of these things would be like, here's your mushroom powder, but the mushroom that you want is like the fifth ingredient, and everything else in front of it is junk. Or here's this like, naked smoothie, but it's apple juice as the first ingredient for every single one. It's like, I don't want apple juice. I want the mango, Right. It's like, let's just give people what they actually want and not be here just simply for profit extraction. So it's like you can charge prices that you still make money on, but it's still actually pretty competitive compared to most products because they just have these huge profit margins that they won't tell you about. I'm a very truthful person, so a lot of people aren't. That's one of the things I've learned in life.
So that's on the website for the teas is called
Wild Free Organic.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
That was like my health blog, and I just kind of built it out over time.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, it goes off the shelves. Once you have your teas done, they disappear pretty fast. Correct.
Yeah. Did you happen to buy any or no?
I haven't yet. No, I really want to buy some of the fruit. I personally want to buy some of the fruit tea. I think you want
fruit tea.
Yeah, just because I enjoy it. I want something sweet in the evening.
So I did save just a couple of the spiritualities. So I'll send you guys meet occasionally, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll send a spirituality and you can split it up.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
Stefan. I know we're running out of time here, but I want to just quickly, if you feel comfortable doing it, segue back to a dream you had recently that seemed very real to me about your connection with the whales.
Yeah, that was interesting. It was more, I don't, what is the word dream, right? Like, what does that mean? I think sometimes we have these experiences that aren't dreams. And my perspective of dreaming is that you're actually just in a different dimension. Your consciousness just goes to the astral dimension, because that explains how it can be so vivid and real, more real than, normal reality. But it's of a different character. And so just like want to put that out there, because I think there's a common perception that all dreams are fantasy. And I don't think at a certain point that they're just fantasy. I think they're actual experiences, just in different dimensions, you could say. That's my understanding. And so this whale dream that I had, this whale experience, was that I was laying down, and all of a sudden I had like this, I turned into almost like a receiver, like an antenna receiver. I was getting all these different information streams come in. They were human, people talking about different things. And I was wondering if it was like initially, like I was thinking about this while it was happening. I was like, are these my thoughts running through my head? But it seemed outside of me. Like, what I've really noticed in the dream state is that you have this instant knowing with things, and there's no second guessing or like, oh, I think this or that. It's like basically, the intuition ability goes way up. And so, like, very quickly, I was like, okay, these are not my thoughts. These are actual information streams. There's other people's voices, there's a whole bunch of them. And so they were like clicking through the channels, you could say. I think I was actually picking up on some of the collective frequencies that were in people's minds in the field. That's just my feeling for that. And then all of a sudden, though, I had this like a whale song like reverberate through my body. Like I heard it, but I also felt it, this vibration of a whale singing. And it was like this information download from the whale, but also just this actual experience. And all of a sudden I was overcome with like grief and sadness about what has happened to the different whales, like the past 150, 200 years. And it was like the whales shared some of their life experience with me through that song, that vibration. And when it was occurring, I was thinking just a little bit in my head, like, okay, is this a whale actually singing off the coast of San Diego, which is where I am? And that doesn't make sense because there's cars driving by and actual sound waves. I wouldn't be able to feel that. But if this was carried through something like the Schuman Resonances, then my brain could reconstruct that experience and make me actually feel it. That's just one way of maybe understanding this. But I just, in general, though, I was given this information by the whales, or at least my antenna tuned that direction. But it felt intentional. And then afterwards, it just brought a lot of like awareness and greater consciousness as to the suffering of other very intelligent, sentient, very conscious beings on our planet. Because we get kind of lost and wrapped up in our own world. And that kind of brought it back to the fact that, okay, like there are other very, very conscious, evolved beings that we co-inhabit this planet with, that we've done a lot of harm to, that we need to take responsibility for. And it's called like radical like responsibility. Like there was someone that commented on that video saying like, I didn't kill the whales. I don't know of any of my ancestors who killed the whales. And so like there's nothing that I need to do. And like, yes, that's true. But at the same time, like as I see it, the only way this problem is going to be solved is if we all just radically accept that collectively, that wrong that we did, and move forward with that. And I don't think that's too much to ask. It felt very healing for me to take on some of that and process those emotions. I was almost a little disappointed when it ended, even though I was like crying in my dream with this whale song and everything. A lot of people don't like to experience these emotions, but I could feel the healing occurring, at least my little instance when it occurred. And I'm sure other people have their own experiences all the time. I'm not the only one doing this, which is fantastic. But there has to be greater awareness and willingness by us overall for these sort of things to actually be healed to a significant degree. Because I wouldn't have received that download in the first place if that all the trauma that we inflicted upon, like the whales, for example, never occurred, and B, they still weren't grieving about that. Just as Native American tribes are still grieving over the loss of their, so much of their past and so much of their people and their lands and their way of life, right? Like, this isn't all just because it's done doesn't mean all of a sudden it's healed. And so I think that's a big aspect of this too. Sometimes we focus too much on, it'll be like the astrology will be like, with this T-square, make sure you cut out your toxic relationships. It's like, that's a good thing to do. Like, we don't want toxic relationships, but sometimes we need to be looking at the greater picture here. It's like, how have we been toxic in our relationships with other life forms, right? And by addressing those things, I think it naturally helps us to attune and to align into ourselves and our higher spirit more. And that will then naturally sort our life into place. And so you can really focus on these greater issues, and you'll find, let's say, that toxic relationship no longer like a big aspect in your life. But that's just what I believe. But it was a very visceral, powerful experience. I felt compelled to share it. And so I did, and it seemed to resonate with a lot of people, which I'm very happy for.
Yeah, it certainly resonated with me. I have a feeling that you were sort of chosen because you have this platform to share. And my frank opinion is that whaling is not over with. It's still continuing. I think that there's still things going on. And I feel like you're such a great conduit for what's happening on the universal level. And the whales certainly must relate to you. So it's really a beautiful dream, quite frankly.
Well, I would like to have more experiences with them. Recently, I've been going into these kind of like rabbit holes with like the deep sea and the ocean and everything. I guess, that's been kind of fascinating me. So I need to explore that more. And there's different labels that we have. People will call themselves a channel or whatever. All those gifts exist. I guess I just share these experiences that I have. I don't consider myself like a channeler, but I guess that is what that was. But yeah, I mean, it's good to, some people are giving these experiences at different times in their life, and I think it's good to share those. That's why I'm so happy to see so many platforms now pop up. One being this podcast, for example, others being like these NDE YouTube channels, where then people can come on and share their stories and experiences, because it can be deeply transformational, not only for them, but for a lot of people. It can be very impactful. And I think sharing actual human experience is what's like the most valuable thing. So you can talk about data and all this stuff, and that's great, but it has to have some element of human in there. And so I incorporate that. And I think that's what really helps at the end of the day. You feel like you're actually connecting with someone, because you are actually connecting with that person.
Yeah. And with the planet in general, it's very evidentiary. So we like that, right? We need to have that. I can see it and feel it and hear it.
And not go too far where now you're just, talking about yourself because you just want to talk about yourself. It's like, share the experience that people resonate with, and then move on to other stuff. It's a difficult thing, because you have to be aware of like your ego and things of that nature. And I can't say I'm perfect at that, but it's this evolution process. And I just have these experiences that I feel like people want to know about. And so I share them when they're appropriate.
Yeah, it's a good blend. It's a good blend of data and information and education and personal experience. It's kind of life.
Yeah.
So, Lexi, am I missing anything?
No. I mean, I just had a dream last night that the trees were so malnourished they started eating people. But I'm sure that has nothing to do with anything.
Sounds like a movie.
Nothing to do with anything.
Malnourished in what way?
Like they were hungry. The trees were so hungry they started eating people.
It's interesting, because we know that our soil is so depleted right now.
I know. Right.
My mind went.
Or like, for example, in any normal town or city, the amount of asphalt and concrete that exists compared to dirt is tremendous. And so their roots are underneath that. But that soil that's capped is not being replenished naturally by the leaves falling, composting, and then effectively, even like when it rains and the leaves are there, it creates like basically like a fertilizer tea that goes down. Yeah, the trees probably, and they're also being cut down a lot, way too early. A lot of them are dying early. Yeah, I mean, there's just a tremendous amount that we've inflicted on this planet that I think we can't like lie to ourselves about. We've done a lot of good. A lot of things that we've done are just outdated systems that we really should probably evolve.
Right. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of this is happening right now, is to give us that opportunity. It's like, come on, now's the time. We can, and we're certainly evolved. We can be evolved human beings. There's all there. I mean, the technology is there, the information's there. I think there's an urgency there.
We have all the things we need to like go into New Earth. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of New Earth, that there's greater harmony amongst the Earth, ourselves, all other sentient beings here. But yeah, it's like, will we step into that? And fortunately, a lot of power is like in the corporations, and those will have to be dismantled somehow. Like, how is that going to occur? I don't know, but those will have to be dismantled for the parking lots to get broken up, for there to be parks and dirt again, for example.
Right.
Like very simple things. Like we need that though.
So the trees won't eat the humans.
Yeah. Or else they will.
They might.
Drop a branch on your head.
Yeah. Earth to earth. Dust to dust. So, all right. Tell us how we can get in touch with you, how the audience can watch your podcast. What else do you have coming up? Any announcements? Are you going to be back on television at any point? Or some great show of your own?
Eventually a good show of my own. I would like to do something very similar to Secrets of the Underground, which is getting this geophysical equipment and going to different like archaeological sites or areas where they've done interesting things and surveying them and trying to find the remains.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a whole bunch of good candidate or like strange anomalies that we have. I would like to do that at some point. And so that will be an expansion of the YouTube channel, maybe in a few years or less. That'd be really cool. But in general, the YouTube channel is just at Stefan Burns. So STEFANBURNS. So just like my name right there, just with the at. My website's wildfreeorganic.com. I'll have a whole bunch of tea blends available at the very end of August and through September. This is my Vitality, my Tranquility, and my Electricity tea blends, which are the original three that started it all. And so they'll be in stock then, which will be great. So if you're interested in these, organic, natural herbal teas, then you can subscribe and I'll make an announcement when that is coming out. And I mean, that's basically it. Just very thankful and grateful for you to have reached out and to be on this podcast to talk about these things. And yeah.
No, I think we're pretty grateful to you. It's really interesting. Really, really interesting. Hope we can work together again in some capacity.
Yeah, I'm sure with time we will do that. And just also, just thank you for watching the channel and for finding this valuable and interesting and for sharing it with your audience, because that is really how this gets out there to more people. I mentioned how so many people were unaware of this G-force storm. It's more than just one person talking about it on a podium. There has to be people spreading that information out there. And so, we're all part of that. I'm just one person speaking about this, but then collectively, that's where the power is. So for everyone watching too, that's something that you can also step into that power.
That's where it's at.